Good evening. Good evening and welcome to our lecture at the AAC, also at home and on YouTube. We're glad you're here as well. Today we have Johannes Pilz from MVRDV. He's part of the ever-growing German part of the office in Rotterdam. And the work of MVRDV is about encouragement of new ways of togetherness, developing of emotional growth of communities. And for that, they have developed new ways of expression that go beyond, I think one can say, the traditional grammar of placemaking. So, encouragement of productive, creative spaces or of spaces for creative production is the brief of our workshop. So in that respect, I'm delighted that you're here and we can't wait what you brought to the workshop. Please join me in welcoming Johannes Pilz.
Hello. Thank you. Also, thank you for the invitation. It's been a while that I was in Hamburg for a project. It's now 7 years ago. It's really nice to be here back in this city with this interesting charm. You know, I'm based in Rotterdam, so I live there, and we have and when you come here, you really feel it. So that's nice. And it was. Got asked for talk about mainly two projects, and when reading the brief for I couldn't get really around why exactly these two projects, because they are very opposite of each other. But then I could connect it and found by yeah. No, we didn't test it enough, obviously, but it's also nice, right? Yeah, so the topic of the theme of the lecture is stimulating heritage, because after getting asked for these two projects that are very opposite, I thought, okay, what do they have in common? And in the end, you will see this in this lecture. It's about how we treat different things in life, our heritage. So you will see, is it built fabric or is it actually art that we take care of? So maybe before I start, quick introduction. Obviously, I represent the office MVRDV. For those who don't know, the three founding partners. Jacob van Rijs, Nathalie de Vries, and Winnie Maas. But by now, in the last years, we grew a lot. We have 14 partners. We are mainly based in Rotterdam. We are a team of 300 creatives, and of course also back office and so on. And at the moment, we are based in, you see Rotterdam, Paris, New York, Berlin, Shanghai. And still the creative core is and will always be in Rotterdam, where I'm also based. And the office is known now. We celebrated 30 years of MVRDV for a variety of things, but mainly I think for always this combination of research and working in all different scales, and this will also come back today in the lecture. It's probably most known, especially here in Germany, for the Expo Pavilion from 2000 in Hanover. It was kind of the groundbreaking also for the office. And other milestones since then was the Markthal in Rotterdam, 2014, the depot, which I will talk about today, which opened recently, and even newer, the valley in Amsterdam. So, stimulating heritage. As I said, I thought, okay, how can I connect this to what we do in the office? It's a theme. It's in Armenia, and actually we have a few projects there. And I also had to think of this example from Yerevan, this brutalistic monument, and then I thought, okay, this is actually the link to introducing a third project. So I hope we don't expand the time frame too much, because I think it's about how can we treat heritage in a different way, and I will frame it to talk about, okay, how can we treat the monument, how can we treat the shelter, and how can we treat the campus? And I start with the monument, and in specifically the Tirana pyramid. So that's also the link. This is an old monument built in '88. It was supposed to be a monument for the old former dictator Hoak, and yeah, it was vacant for a long time and empty, and most of all it got neglected and taken over by the people. So there was different use of it, cultural institutions or bars and clubs, and yeah, as it is so dominant in the city, people just took over. And when they heard, okay, it should be demolished, and actually the new open parliament of Albania should come there, they protested, and they did it pretty wild. So the government was a bit in the limbo. Okay, what can we do here? Because we cannot just make a new parliament. So the question was, how can we save such a neglected monument? And this is the link now to Yerevan, because an institution called TUMO that now many of you here know came into play, and somehow we got connected via the government of Albania, because TUMO is an organization that is a center for creative technologies, free education for young people. And it seemed that this is exactly the right thing that Tirana and Albania needs at this uprising situation where they are. They invest a lot in architecture, infrastructure. And so, yeah, we got matched together to create a new hub for these young creatives. And the pyramid seemed to be the right spot for that. So the ambition was that we had a pyramid in the past. It was closed. It was restricted to access. It had clear borders, and the building was the program. And so we approached it and said, okay, the people took over, and it seemed like it really was already owned by the people. So whatever happens with the building, it should stay with the people. So that was the ambition, that it turns into an open building. The public takes over, it merges with the surrounding, and the program spills out from it. And obviously there's always a business case behind such an act. TUMO said, okay, we want to come here and help the government, and we will have our institute here, but it cannot be the full program. So from the beginning, the goal was, okay, there's TUMO there, but there will always be facilities that will be rented out. And that matched nicely with our approach to say, okay, we want to clean up the building, use what is in good condition, and add program. And as it is kind of a hollow shell, we thought, okay, we can stack program into it in shape of boxes. as many as we want and need. And then it was about creating the access and openness to the building by adding a new facade. So this is a quick program analysis. It mainly should show that, okay, there was a program intended by TUMO to be used, and there is something that should be used by other parties for the public. And we thought, okay, there is also part that overlaps, and maybe there are things from TUMO that the public could use and the public that TUMO could use. And if we spread it into the surrounding, we can actually make the access bigger. So this program got stacked in different boxes into the pyramid and the pyramid around. So these are early concept images. And from the beginning, there was this differentiation of boxes that are for TUMO and for the public. So here, a first sketch how this should connect to the surrounding. When the boxes are inside, they are also stacked into the existing structure. That means simply in the middle, you have boxes that are stacked on each other. It's their own structure, but sometimes it's more complicated because you're intersecting with a existing monument in that sense. But it worked out quite nicely, and at that stage we thought, okay, actually it's something I only heard in preparation for this meeting, that usually we are the ones who come with the color, and it seemed like when we came with this first proposal, okay, we want this clean monument, one color, bluish from the foam. That's a bit of fetish, I would say. But then Vinny was sitting with the Prime Minister on a table, and then the Prime Minister gave a little hint and said, yeah, because it's also not the first project we have in Tirana, and the Prime Minister said, okay, Vinny, we bring MVRDV here to Tirana, and you know, the first building, it has one color, and the second one, another tower in the center, it has one color, and now you give me this again, it's one color. And then when, that was the moment when we said, yeah, rightfully, this is a project for the city, it spreads out, so it's nice to introduce a color scheme, and everyone got happy by this. Yeah, so in that sense, you can also identify nowadays still which are the boxes there that belong to the public and which are the ones that belong to TUMO, which is a small part of it. Yeah, and this is how it is now. It got opened last year. This is the picture from the inside of the pyramid. This is mainly the boxes of TUMO, and they have their own access, and so this is how these boxes, like parasites, infiltrated the site and the building. This is the view, and this is the other building in the back by MVRDV also, which has this one color, obviously. So this project didn't need much because it was already such a strong building and shape. So the main intervention here was to create access and to give it to the people by opening it up and giving access. And in that sense, we created different stairs with different ratios to also have a very diverse experience when climbing up. And ultimately, the very successful part of it is that we connected these stairs in between. So this is the internal connection stairs. And what we always try to do when we work with heritage, we want to really expose it as much as possible, so that you can read, okay, what is the old, what is the new, what are traces, so that you, when you go to the building, that you also witness what happened here over time. So that's something we did when choosing the materials. So besides these colorful boxes, they are new. The former monument had this natural stone facade, but over time, as you saw, it broke down, it fell apart. So for us, the idea was, okay, we keep the natural stone where it is, and where it isn't, we fix it, simply by painting and plastering. which you see here. So then you get this very rough appearance of the old and the new, and where it was possible to keep it and where not. So this was the state when we started, and it was very adventurous site visits. But this is where we are now, and it's really beautiful to see how the building got accepted by the public so much, because they already had it, they identified with it before, but now it really gives public space to the people. It gives a different experience when walking up and down. It has a lot of viewing platforms, so when you're there, you really see people hanging out and enjoying the view and their city, and it's nice how you can see that the city is really in rapid transformation. Yeah, and we always try to add a few funny aspects, so glass floors is one of those. They come back in many projects, and yeah, also here from the top you can look inside into this void and experience from the top and from below, which is quite beautiful. Yeah, so I think this image sums it up quite nicely. What we can do with a monument that maybe others would have already have demolished, but if we really analyze it and we bring it also together with the right parties, like luckily we had here in this case, we can make something extraordinary. And ultimately this acceptance is also what is probably the most sustainable part of this project, because instead of demolishing, we really took the effort to see how we can give it back to the people. Which brings me to this second project, which is exactly the opposite, and I call this the shelter, because it's about the Depot Rotterdam. Depot Rotterdam, it belongs to the great museum Boijmans van Beuningen, and it's in the center of Rotterdam. And it has a classic museum with all the big art that there is. But it had one main issue in the last decade, and it was that most of the artwork was in the basement, stored there, but then the groundwater couldn't be kept away, and so it had to move. It had to be saved in a warehouse. So that was the initial idea for this new project, because it's a bit a shame if all this amazing art is in such a warehouse on the outskirts of Rotterdam. So that was when, I think it was 2015, the competition was started, and MVRDV in the end was the winner. And I show how we came up with this volume simply. So there's this site that is it's surrounded by for those who were in Rotterdam already. It's called the Museum Park. It has a big square with the European flag designed by OMA long time ago, and it's an access between the Kunsthal, the Museum Boijmans van Beuningen, and the new institute, which is it's also the architecture center of Rotterdam. So that limited already the site, and back then it was a square with a lot of trees. That was important. So the site was limited. The program was still a lot, and the question was how to create a volume that fits into its surrounding, because all the surroundings actually, besides the hospital on the other side, is lower, and also how to gain the acceptance by the people again if you take away their green park. So we thought, first of all, a round building, you don't want to give them a facade or block any direction, and you want to minimize the footprint and maximize the public space. So that's why we shaped this cup shape at the moment. And there was another reason, because every 2 years there's a big theater art exhibition there. It's called the Parade in Rotterdam. And they used this square, so it was also really the task, how can this new museum fit with this festival that comes there every 2 years. It's a big thing in Rotterdam. It shouldn't be too tall. It should have a panoramic roof terrace to give back the public space, and it should still allow for the connections. So this was September 2013 in the office. On the left you see Jacob van Rijs, Winnie Maas, and on the right the director of the museum. And usually in such a process we really go through hundreds of foam variations to test, okay, what is the quality of each of them. And here you see it glide, frankly, easily how Winnie got inspired here, because he saw the qualities in front of his nose. So ideally, you want to give a reflective shell, because that gives a reflection from the square. It lets you look around the corner if you have this round shape. The volume dissolves because it merges with the sky. And at night you see the interior, but also actually the skyline of Rotterdam. It's one of the main features. And besides of the mirror facade, creating a roof terrace gave us the opportunity to not take away the park, but to extend it and to create a roof terrace that is publicly accessible. And that was a key argument also in the winning proposal. And initially the idea was also to take exactly the same trees, and the effort was even made. So they took all the trees, they brought it to a tree nursery, and the idea was to bring those back. I don't know the whole story anymore, but it wasn't possible to bring all the trees back, so then they had to replace it with the same kind. So that was the concept. 2015. There was a long process. There was even a lawsuit in between. It was resolved because they said, MVRDV, they are too close to the director of the museum, and Winnie always drinks coffee with him, and he must have known already. And one of the main arguments was then, it cannot be, because Winnie doesn't drink coffee. If you are in the office, he wouldn't do this. So of course a joke, and was not the main argument, but clearly it was resolved that that wasn't the case, and we could start building. So this is from the construction side. This is also this square by the OMA flag that I meant. Here's the museum Boijmans from Beuningen, and here that new institute, the architecture center. And so here you see how the construction went on. Already the facade starting while the top was just topping out. And you see only these few openings because we're creating a art depot. So we want to make all the art accessible for people. And even though they are stored, you can experience it. And that helps quite nicely with such a shape that is mirrored and doesn't need so much windows or access. But it also meant that it's a very simple building. The main point is the facade, and that you have to do right. So there was a lot of engineering and paneling, parametric approach to it. Obviously, the panels are double folded, and that's how the panels are in the end here to see in a mock-up, and also then later on the building, how they are mounted and how it reflects. So you saw the windows that also had to be solved. Obviously, how can you look from the inside to the outside, and how can it still be reflective? And you see this is by this silk screen print. And it was even more important later when when the nearby hospital said, okay, no, we want to wait to this building because we have a institution that where young kids, they cannot deal with this reflection. But we could easily change the print and therefore say, okay, in some areas where the view is there, we don't have the reflection. So one thing was the mirror facade that had to be engineered and money had to be put in there. And the other thing was the access on the ground floor. Because this is maybe the downside of a building where you give it to the public and you make the ground floor as small as possible. You have to cramp everything in this ground floor. And that means the entrance, the delivery, and the side entrances. So the goal was to create this, this image is maybe better, to create this, I don't know even more the correct term, but really like, very engineered experience that can open and close, and the project gets this monolithic shape again, and the trucks drive in. So, yeah. And it looks like a very simple building from the outside, also when you're inside, but there were a lot of iterations, and there was it took a long time to actually come to this simple idea of, okay, you have this cup-like shape, you have some exhibition spaces on the side or some storage space, and you have this central void where people can walk, or whoever has access can walk freely and experience the art through windows. And on top you have the public roof terrace, which can be accessed all the time. I mean, opening times, but it's freely accessible. So the heart of the building is this void. So I thought it's nice to compare a bit the images from concept design and how it turned out later. This is, by the way, also the ground floor where you see this is the lobby, and the rest is already storage. This is the truck entrance, and here is the main entrance with the stair and the elevator. So you come in here. It's a very cramped experience, but it helps a lot because when you enter, you feel like, okay, it's not so much space, but it really works because then you enter the artworks and you see how this void opens up, and it's a very grand experience because you have this glass, metal. You see artworks hanging everywhere. They're exposed behind glass, and so it really helps to have this threshold from the lobby into this atrium. And you can see the light on top because obviously this is the atrium connected to the roof. And I go back. So this was the intention from the competition, atrium where all the art can hang, and stairs that cross up and down, so that you can have access by foot, but also by elevators. And whoever, if you weren't there, I really recommend also you can look up on YouTube videos from these elevators, because it's quite an experience going up and seeing all these levels. And funnily, in the beginning, the project was designed thinking, okay, people will take the elevator up and will walk down. And now the real situation is that it's the opposite, because you enter this space, you have all the stairs, and you get pretty overwhelmed, and you want to experience, and you keep walking. Yeah, so this is a few shots of how that works. You walk a lot over glass floors. You have a view into the storage, and it works a lot with an app. So you can say, okay, what is in this space? And then very often they showcase depending to different topics. But in the end, you are free to just see what is there without too much curation. you can take a tour and then really go inside also and see all the artworks. And there is also a few dedicated exhibition spaces for temporary exhibitions, and they show quite nicely the views to the city. So there's these few windows, and they frame really different aspects and how the city is connected to the building. So this is the hospital in the southwest. Yeah, and the main feature for the public is the roof terrace, bar and event space, and the terrace with the trees. So there had to be a lot of package to host these trees with this size. And the objective was really to create this bar space as open as possible, so that you go up there, you sit and drink your drink, but you have the feeling as if you are in the park as it used to be. And yeah, just with the addition that you see the Rotterdam skyline growing next to you, so it's quite an amazing space. And we're really happy that it's also, it became already this new icon of Rotterdam. It's really used for all kind of events. We always like to show this when important figures visit our buildings. But it was similar with the Markthal, and it's the same now with the depot. And who knows what's next? Yeah, here's some views from this terrace. We have this pavilion that is mirrored, and you get the feeling that you're really in a forest. Yeah, that's our mirror cup. And the third theme in terms of stimulating heritage that I want to talk about is Atelier Gardens in Berlin, and that's probably the project which relates the most, obviously, to the topic of the course. I believe also in size it's very similar. So Atelier Garden is a industrial site for film production, and it's situated in Berlin, here south of Tempelhof Park. And you see the site here. You have the highway and the rail that are next to it, and it's pretty disconnected, in fact. So what to do when asked to do such a project? Because unlike the first project, which is clearly a monument and you have to deal with this, and the second one was a competition with a given program, and now we have a bigger site. It's not just one object. So also the brief was not really clear. So it was really about what can we find here and create here. So this showcase also another aspect of the office where we are quite strong, which is the combination of scales, because this is a project that was started by our urban studio, and that was finished then by the German studio when it got into specific projects. And this is something we like a lot in the office also, because it's the urban aspect is very visionary, and then you bring it into realization. So confronted with the urban part, a lot of analysis had to take place. So really dig in and drawing a lot of maps and trying to understand the site and making sense of it. So I go through a lot of slides which touch this. So, for example, the vegetation. It's a site which, here it says, it's quite funny. It's surrounded by trees, but on the side there's only 6 trees. Still, it got this, I guess, also influenced by the Tempelhof characteristic. It got this urban gardening style over the years. It's a site that is pretty paved, and it has a lot of entrances, but actually only one clear entrance. There's a lot of parking facilities, and the ambition for us was to create a car-free area. and some buildings were higher than others, and that was obviously something that was very intriguing to us, that you have this big park in front of you, and you have a few buildings that can actually take advantage of that. And there was a lot of history on this site, because it developed over the decades, and it was always in a way of plug and play. Some other studios and facilities came. So you see already here that you have the main production studios. You have a lot of open space, and then you have some regular buildings that were more office character. And this is how it used to be. For example, when it all started, and this is, you see this glass house on top, which is basically to create a natural light condition to this space. It's very interesting that back then it was solved like this, and also here very light conditions, and in general it didn't change so much what was happening here over the years. Just that they had to bring in the light pretty much. So also here you see the beginnings of the 1930s, a lot of beautiful production buildings out of brick, and fairly okay density, 1.0, so it's 24,000 square meters, not too much. And you see already how it is orientated, that there's kind of this main square condition, especially when you consider that the site is really enclosed and very intimate, private, not connected too much to the surrounding. And there are these different scales. So you have the studios, but you also have the small offices, storage facilities also. So what to do with this? Also with this big contrast of buildings that have a very interesting architectural condition. Here a few images of mainly the studios. They're called Ton 2, 3, 4, and so on. And usually they are open, flexible spaces. But then you also have this plug and play. I call it plug and play, like later additions to the whole campus of not so substantial architecture, or from the substance not. So that brings also already a first evaluation. Okay, what is the substance that you want to keep? What brings the character? What would carry on the spirit, and what would need a bit lift up? Here a regular work facility, the dubbing studios, and another studio. A few impressions to this. Yeah, exactly. Like I mentioned, the building age. So you mainly have the pre-war buildings from the Bufa, and the after buildings that came after the World War. And this is in short the different style that you find on the site. So I would say the brick buildings is something where you feel like, okay, you don't need to do a lot on the outside, while there's other buildings that could get more expression from the outside, and then there's other that we valued as not too substantial and they could be replaced. The site lives a lot already by the spirit, how people, it's a film industry, creative industry, it's used a lot as event spaces, so there's already a lot happening, and that was also the goal to carry on, because this site is zoned as an industrial area, and it was clear that it has to stay like this. So it had to stay within the film industry, and it could only be extended punctually with small office or startups, which fits quite nicely to this character that the site has at the moment. So after this long analysis, we created our ambition, our objectives. We said, okay, this utopia feeling, it's a place where a lot can happen, and you don't know yet exactly what it will be. So you want to facilitate also this change. Obviously, I mentioned car-free. Sustainability has a lot of importance, especially when we approach this. Obviously, with the urban studio, we approach it more from building mass, and we look a lot on the public space, on the green space first. Adaptable multifunctional spaces, outdoor performance space, exactly. And a big part, like I said, was to bring together this community, so the people who are already there, and to carry on the spirit. So yeah, activists, educators. Also the client was very for him was really important to keep this on, and not to create a gentrified block there. So when approaching this from the urban standpoint, we work a lot with visions. We ask ourselves the question, what could happen here? And then we come to an image that is roughly the direction, but not so defined yet. And here a few impressions that try to give the scenography for the whole site. So we said, okay, this is the main entrance. The village is car-free, and it promotes the use of public transport and bicycles. It's a place that simulates biodiversity and welcomes all living creatures. The village has space for all people and places and activities. And you see already, we show a lot of green. We want to bring this together, the built masses, the events, and the buildings, where we already have our famous stairs that we like to add wherever possible. But also this image was created because one of the main characters was really this main square that we felt is very important to this site. And these images should just give the character of, okay, it's a site for event, a lot can happen. You want to activate the free space. You want to make it green and sustainable. And we create a sort of image and treatment to the different buildings. And with that, so to say, our master plan phase was coming to an end, and we thought, okay, it really works like a village, because also a village, it has this public space where the people come together, and in this case, surrounded by the different functions that a city and a community need to live. And this was the drivers for the theme, the village, the Bufa village, and we created the main objectives in regards to that. So we said it's an inclusive environment, it's social, there's interaction, it has public spaces, it's very diverse, mixed program, it's a green oasis, and it's a car-free site. And in that regard, most important, obviously I mentioned it has to be green and diverse and sustainable. But this part here is probably the most important pilot projects, because there was the idea to split the program. You will still have the working spaces from the film industry, but you will also have space to create new facilities, and to combine this with a lot of outdoor space, like program to bring this all together and to activate. And that together gives us a master plan of a lot of ideas, a lot of projects. But we have to start at one point, and that was really also the drive from the client, and this is a quote I picked up. Yeah, it's kind of a cowboy strategy within this industrial zoning plan. So the idea is, yeah, we are very limited here, and we have a lot of ideas, but also we have to take it step by step. So we have to start somewhere, and let's see where we are with starting like this in 5 years. Maybe something can be changed in zoning plans. And in that sense, it was important to create more on a master plan level the character and the vision and the spirit, and to start with it without limiting it too much to the future. And yeah, maybe then in a few years other program is possible or even desired. So the village is built up step by step within 100 projects, and some are more important or more relevant to the site and the client than others. And I think this is now a nice overview to see the site. So this is the main entrance that I talked about, and main ingredients are this forum, the main square, the Studio One, the main street, public space, and this House One with a sky deck. We also have, at that stage we had also this, but we focus mainly on these 2 pilot projects, which is the Studio One, also called Tone One. This is from an early concept sketch of what we could do with this place. Like I said, it's this very beautiful historic facade, so it asks for treatment on the inside. Yeah, diverse social interaction, cultural events. And the second project is House One, where we said, okay, this is maybe a building that could need a lifting from the facade, and could need a top-up to take advantage of the height, because this is the building that really has the view over the Tempelhof Park. So you see here in the back, this is the stair that we envisioned back then. And I will tell a bit more in detail to these 2 projects, because that's the 2 projects that we took over then in the architectural studio. The landscape is done by a landscape architect with our coordination, and we started with building Ton 1. This is the beautiful building from the outside. And yeah, it has always been a space for film production to make create new things, and it had to be very flexible. Therefore, obviously, a film set is making up the stages as they need. So when we started, this was an empty space, very flexible, but obviously outdated and needs a renovation. So we thought, how can we keep this character of a neutral space to allow for adaptations of atmosphere, settings, different activities, and a space that is really as flexible to welcome all kind of people, scenarios, communities, that also stimulates this interaction that the client wanted to foster so much with the spirit. So we are really asked here to create a very flexible framework. Back then we also worked really with different. Actually, that's something we worked on with the whole master plan. I didn't include it in the slides, but with all the projects that we had, we always worked in budget categories. We said, okay, this is the low cost, the medium cost, and the high cost. This is something we really like to work with a lot, like a catalog of opportunities, and we because in that sense we can teaser and show the qualities of if we go a step farther, but we also always have a fallback that is already a good base architecturally. And here, this framework was mainly this to renovate the space, make it free, empty it up, and to allow for different scenarios, combined with an interior of modular elements that can be positioned in a different way and add up to this. So you mainly see here the tribune that can be built in different scenarios. And then the most important, the more iconic part of it is to use space dividers. And so now at this stage we renovated the whole space and we want to divide it. So we thought, okay, we want to work with curtains. So all we needed to do here was to create a rail structure that would allow for as many interesting combinations as possible, with curtains that give obviously acoustic performance, so they help us in that sense, but they can also divide and they give a specific feel to the space. So here from below to the top you see the rails. So this was the setup that was chosen, these 3 main circles and one, I would call it an ice ring surrounding it. And yeah, this is now the space for the community. Back then, when we made the conceptual images, we drew up mainly in the beginning like we wanna give space for projections, for movies, but also for gatherings like this or yoga events. So the test of time will show how the space is really used. This was the very first beginning when it just opened, and we took the first photos. This is one of the mobile tribunes. Here you see the wheels, so it can really move around. Yeah, and it gives very different experiences every time you come, depending on the setting at the moment. And House 1. This is another important building there. It's the highest. It had a bit of a poor character, or it was a bit run down, so it was to us was clear here we need to work more on the outside. And the approach was to make a facade makeover, to renovate the office floors, clean it up, renew it where possible in a sustainable manner, and to add a rooftop pavilion, lightweight, out of timber, and to free up the ground floor to host a community cafe, a hotspot for the community. So this is the first touch point, because it's also next to the main entrance, and to add this public element, the stair to the roof, so that everyone can, when they want, go up and experience the nice view over the site. Yeah, and a roof garden, exactly, that is also there. So this was the conceptual image. Back then we also proposed to have a green facade. It didn't make it until today, but I mean, it could still happen at a later point. So this is House 1. For reference, this is the studio tone 1. And I think what you see quite nicely already is how this simple element already frames the square. So it really gives more importance to it and links it to the building. And so we wanted to keep it very minimal. We chose one color palette. We cleaned up the inside, and we thought we make it more shine on the outside with these few gestures. The zigzag stair, which is a stair of different experience, so it's a bit wider. At points there are chairs and tables, so you are invited to also stop and experience the view. And when we all started, we had to clean up first of all. So it was a lot of waste and everything we could reuse, we did. So even there's one image where you see the 9 door frames, and they couldn't be used there, but it was the whole site was managed that there was a storage and there was an inventory of donor objects. So there was really the ambition also to whatever was not used on that building again is supposed to be used in a different building on site, if the quality is decent. Yeah, and here during the construction side of our rooftop pavilion and the view to Tempelhof Park you see here already. So this is really something, where we felt that had to, even with low investment, you get a lot out of it, because this terrace is just stunning and unique to the whole campus also. Here, and we wait for it to get really green later on. That will take a bit. It's not like with the depot where we put the trees on. Here we have smaller vegetation, and then windows that had to be replaced got replaced, but most of them were just got a paint job. And here the ochre yellowish palette that we used for the facade and the stairs and the outside roof pavilion. This is the space to this canteen on ground floor. Also, this was still during construction, so the connection is not there to the square yet. And this is the inside. So we use this color accent to give character and orientation. And otherwise, it is quite a rough condition, the building, which probably fits also to the character of the film industry. Yeah, and here the zigzag stair, when it just was under construction, the square is also used as a construction deposit, obviously. A good marketing is everywhere visible. Here, we love you, yeah. Branding is very important for transformation process. Yeah. And this is how the stair stands there now, and I think it was opened just a few weeks back when there was a big snow in Berlin. I wasn't there myself, but we got the photos from the team, and it was beautiful because everything was full in snow, and then the lights of the stair came up, and it looked from another world. And people already using it in accepting this extra quality of this stair, which is it's always the nicest to see after finishing a project that really the people occupy it. Like I showed it with the Tirana pyramid, and the same with the depot. The rooftop just works incredibly, and this by night the lights. Thank you.
Thank you very much for putting this together for us. Especially, I think now we have a whole toolbox of great ideas. Now you only have the task to pick the right ones for you. Are there any questions regarding the projects? Will there be any questions? Yes.
Hello. I just had one very small technical questions about the art depot in Rotterdam. So the whole facade is almost like a mirror. So is any night pollution control in the city set? So the mirror could be too much for the environment, for the buildings around it?
You mean?
Or no control, just if someone complains, we do it.
It was never a topic, but it's interesting question. It's I guess it is not an issue because it is surrounding by all these public buildings, which at night most of the time anyway are dark, or there is no direct inhabitants in the surrounding. So when you approach the building, you see this reflection in the evening, actually just at the top tip, because it reflects the rest of the city. I don't know if that's what you mean with light pollution, or yeah. In that sense, like an example for like London examples, or yeah. Yeah, exactly. No, there's not an issue at all actually. So I don't know if it was even. Yeah. Yeah. No, it was really not. I don't know if it was part of the design process, to be honest, because only the topic with the reflection towards the hospital was an issue, but not sunlight or so was never. At least I didn't get aware of it.
Any other questions?
I think maybe the one thing to add to this is also. There were neighbors complaining when the design was revealed, and that was mainly by the building mass, because it's really huge compared to the surrounding. And also was very interesting when you got to the construction site, when it just started, you thought like, whoa, this is a bit too much for this site. And the moment you get the mirror, you thought, okay, it's perfect, because you get this, it really works for this, it gives you the space back.
Thanks. Thank you so much for your presentation. First of all, I have a question about the film studio in Vienna, because right now we're also designing one of those. And we had a talk with somebody from Babelsberg, and he told us that keeping the public out of the productions was quite important to them. So I was wondering, what kind of things are still being shot there, and how does that work with like keeping secrets when you're producing something, and because it seems to be quite this mixed and public space now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have all the details what is shot there, but they keep the same facilities as it was like 10 years ago. They have this big studios, and it is still this enclosed site. So it is not a site that is really fully public. So you have to choose to go there. So in that sense, it can also be regulated. In the very beginning, we obviously said, okay, the site needs to open up. There's a bridge just behind the site, crossing the rails, and that leads directly to Tempelhof. So we thought, perfect. But that was also not, indeed, not the wish. It was more to have it controlled. I don't know if it was actually for that reason. Yeah.
Is it more TV shows there that are filmed there? Do you know that? Maybe I can also have a
Yeah.
afterwards.
Yeah. No, to be honest, I don't have all the yeah.
Thank you.
But for example, there's also YouTube studios, and yeah, exactly, and dubbing and everything related to it. Yeah.
The one challenge with the monument is that it stands for something, and in this case of Tirana, it stood for something that wasn't very liked by the people. Was that part of your process to find out or how to deal with that, or was that addressed by the client?
I didn't understand the very first. You mean it stood for something, and
Yeah, it stood for something. It's a monument.
Yeah.
Monument usually is the expression of an idea or
yeah.
in this case of a donor who wanted to give something to the people, but it's not liked anymore, which is a heavy load for a building that you have to make fit for the future.
So you mean when it was supposed to be this monument for the ex-dictator, right? Yeah. the building was finished for that exactly in a time when there was a big change in Albania. So the use of the building changed quite quickly, and after that it was just transformed into a building for the people. Funnily, we had the project team was there, I think, like 1 week ago, and they also had conversations again with the daughter of the architect from back then, and they also said it was never really intended to be this museum for the dictator, because they even when the building was built like this and it was used as this museum, the idea was still that it is a building that represents the culture of Albania, and it is for the people. And so we were very honored when they said they really appreciate how the transformation actually picks up on the initial idea and takes it forth. So it was discussed.
Mixing users, the public and the production side, or in many of your staircases, it's the broad public, and then the building is occupied by a different user. We are discussing often at AAC how to merge certain circulations in order to make buildings more to give it a better use. There is always a demand to bring more public in order to broadcast better what happens inside the building. Many of these questions you have worked on. Can you say some examples where the borderline between that is, where it works successfully and where it stops working?
Yeah, we push always the limits. So it's with many projects we go maybe out of bounds. So I remember even many competitions that I did for high-rise project where you have this public route going through the building, which is something we really push. So I think in the end it's a question of how far away is our idea from the general understanding of people that they have with a building. Like they don't. Many people then don't understand what's the implication of such a public route. What if we bring people in? So it gets really quickly. The discussion gets to the basics of. Do you need an extra elevator? How do you control the times when people can access the building? And very often we get then pushed back by this argumentation. No, we have to cut costs. We have to close it down anyways in this time. So why do we open it at all? And so when we do the internal route, then it really has to be embedded into the building. We just opened a project in Amsterdam, Matrix 1, which is it's a nice building because it's fully demountable, and it has this nice route. But it's a research science building, so it really works. It's a bit office. Whenever we do these interventions in a mixed-use building, it's really difficult because of the different parties also. Most of the time. So when it is successful, it's usually like it is here, when it's this one, like I said, with a catalog, it's this one item that you could have or not, and it's a matter, you get a price tag and you go for it or not. Like we had this temporary installation in Rotterdam where a stair went up to the roof of the Groothandelsgebouw in Rotterdam, and that was really important for us because we said, look, this is the success, and so many people visited it, and now it's already 2 years ago, I think, the Dakkendagen, like in Rotterdam we have once every year in June the roof days, so they really want to show the potential of the roof, and we made a big installation there in the city, and also there we said, look, so many people visited, there we even had entrance tickets. So now we got in a lot of conversation with other cities. Munich was interested because there's a business case also behind it. It's not only costing, but it also gives something back.
I would like to invite you to continue the discussion next door. Thank you very much again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.